A Larian Studios director just called out AAA in the most brutal way, proving everything we already knew to be true. The problem isn't budgets, it's not us, the players, it's the people running the system. Half of them are institutionally stupid, the other half dim-witted and focused only on self-preservation. And the timing couldn't be more perfect because this week Embracer Group set fire to 2 more studios, adding them to their never-ending list of corpses. Plus, recent reports show that investors are abandoning the AAA model entirely. The money's drying up, the curtain's falling, and we've got all the receipts. So Michael Douse is Larian's director of publishing, the studio that made Baldur's Gate 3, one of the best games of this generation. These aren't theories from some basement dweller shouting into the void. This is a dude who just proved AAA wrong and walked away with a Game of the Year award. He said this week on X that big budgets don't necessarily equal bad games, and that the real problem is people in the traditional product pipeline, not budgets, not technology, the people running the process. So what does that mean? Too many producers, too many directors, too many approval layers, nobody steering the ship, everybody's grubby hands on the same steering wheel. One team wants one thing, executives want another, shareholders want a third. The game gets pulled in 9 different directions until it's unrecognizable. Then he went further. He called out the public company model directly. Half of it is, and I'm quoting here, dim-witted self-preservation, and the other half is genuine lack of vision and leadership. He called it institutional stupidity. When one of the directors behind Baldur's Gate 3 uses the phrase institutional stupidity, you know you're not dealing with a one-off problem. We're dealing with a system that actively stops good games from even being made. And here's the part that AAA doesn't want to hear. Douse said that you can find the audiences easier than ever now. Steam users are at a record high, players are spending more, single player demand is surging, the audience haven't gone anywhere, it got bigger. AAA have just lost relevance. And look, the fact is that he's right. Big budgets don't automatically mean bad games. Believe it or not, there are some AAA games that I do like and do respect, but they do mean far more layers, far less risk, far less creative freedom, and 9 times out of 10 that does lead to shit games. And the best part is he's not the only one saying this. Dan Houser, Rockstar's co-founder, the man behind Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, he sat down with Lex Friedman recently and said this: the industry gets overly focused on making money. He warned that the future of gaming could go one of 2 ways, somewhere really interesting or somewhere that just chases the cash, and we all know which direction AAA chooses. He described the exact same problem Michael Douse is. The incentives are broken, the model prioritizes shareholders over players, short-term profit over long-term trust and quality, and when that becomes the mission, the creativity dies, the games just get worse. And sadly, Embracer Group literally just proved them both right. Embracer spent years hoovering up studios, over 100 of them. Gearbox, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos, Saber, massive names with decades of history. The plan was to build an empire, become the biggest publisher in the West. Then a $2 billion investment fell through in 2023 and their entire house of cards collapsed overnight. Dozens of studios have been closed, thousands of people, developers who've been making games for 20, 30 years, fired, projects cancelled mid-development, IP shelved forever, a complete and utter bloodbath. And then just yesterday 2 more studios dumped, sold off, the developers behind Remnant and Neverwinter just added to the flaming pile of corpses. This is literally a fire sale. Embracer's drowning in debt, so they're offloading anything they can to stay alive. It's the clearest example of everything Michael Douse and Dan Houser said. They weren't making games, they were making spreadsheets, growth projections, shareholder presentations, seeing only dollar signs. No vision, no leadership, just acquisitions for the sake of acquisitions, growth at any cost. But it turns out size doesn't matter, or so I've been told. The money dried up and now the studios that took decades to build are being flogged off like a bargain bin special, all within the space of a few years. Institutional stupidity, exactly like he said. But here's where it gets really interesting. According to a new industry report from Exola, investor funding for video games has collapsed this year, down 62% year over year. And to make it worse, only 60 gaming investments happened in Q2 2025, which is down 31% versus Q1. And in the report's own words, it signals a continued cooldown in gaming investment activity. The endless supply of AAA money is gone. But the best part is though, player numbers have only increased. Steam broke its concurrent user record in October, 41.6 million people playing online at once, just on Steam. Player spending's up, active users across platforms is now up to 3.6 billion in 2025. That's an increase of over 200 million new players versus 2024. Global games market will hit nearly $190 billion this year, record highs. So the players are there, they're growing, we're spending money. The investors just clearly don't believe in the decaying AAA model anymore. And honestly, good. Because what we're watching is investors finally realizing what we figured out years ago, that throwing $300 million at a 6-year dev cycle for a soulless live service game isn't a safe bet, it's a gamble, and most of the time that gamble fails hard. Which is why now we're seeing developers going around them, heading to Kickstarter, indies funding games directly through players because the traditional investor pipeline has just dried up. Turns out when you make something people actually want, you don't need greedy investors to validate it. Just go straight to the source, the people actually playing the games. It's clear AAA is dying and the numbers prove it beyond a doubt. But here's the thing, it didn't happen overnight. George Broussard, one of Duke Nukem's original creators, saw this collapse coming decades ago, and this guy knows. He's been watching this industry die in slow motion for 30 years now. He said this week that once games started costing $30 million to make during the Xbox 360 era versus $3 to $5 million in the early 2000s, then jumped again to $250 million, it was all over for originality and risk taking. Publishers can't afford to take a risk with that much money. So what did they do? We all know, yearly sequels of the same 5 games. Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, Far Cry, over and over. Because when a game costs $250 million and takes 6 to 8 years to make with teams of over 1,000 people, one failure can literally be the end of a studio. It's too much to risk. The maddest part is even the safe bets are failing now. Black Ops 7 just launched with sales down over 50% compared to Black Ops 6. In Europe it's down 63% compared to Battlefield 6. It now holds the lowest user score in Call of Duty history. So clearly when you turn game development into a factory, you're not making games, you're processing talent through a system that actively kills creativity. Developers who could be experimenting, innovating, taking risks, they're stuck making the 20th Call of Duty, watching their ideas die in pre-production because it's too risky or not what tested well at a focus group. They built a system where taking risks could sink an entire company, then they blamed us for not buying the safe, soulless products that same system produced. We all know Embracer won't be the last, they're just one of the first dominoes to fall. The conditions that built the massive AAA behemoth don't exist anymore. The world changed and AAA didn't. Refused to learn, refused to adapt. They optimized for everything except actually making good games. And at this point they don't even need to, they just need to burn down the entire system. We've been watching this slow motion car crash for decades. We all knew it was coming. The only surprise is how long it took. The question is what's left behind even worth saving anymore? As always, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. It really helps me out more than you know. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.